Welcome back to You Be the Judge. Our guest for this segment is a very special guest. She's a doctor from Bethel, New York, but somebody who's an activist to support this river and protect it from hydraulic fracturing. Her name is Dr. Larissa Durska. And Doctor, you're a pediatrician by trade, and you've worked with the Damascus Citizens for Sustainability for some time now. What are your worries about what can happen to this river?
Well, these waters are considered special protection waters, specially protected under the compact of the Delaware River Basin Commission. And if hydraulic fracturing were to occur here without protections of human health, without consideration of human health, it would potentially be devastating to not only us here, but to people downriver from us.
Now, there's people downriver from us that depend on this river for drinking water.
Correct.
How many?
The number is 15 million.
Can you imagine 15 million people? And you sent me a link last night. As a matter of fact, at 1:30 this morning, I think from Dr. Conrad Volz, a speech that he gave at Misericordia University near Scranton, where he talked about what was happening in the Monongahela and the Ohio River in southwestern Pennsylvania. I just can't imagine that happening to the people in New York and Philadelphia.
Well, unfortunately, what has happened in Pennsylvania is that waste has not been addressed adequately. Waste has been disposed of into rivers, put through waste treatment plants that are not made to be processing the kind of waste that comes out of the gas drilling as gas drilling waste. And as a result, there's barium, there's bromide, manganese, there's arsenic. There are all sorts of compounds that are not to be found in drinking water. Total dissolved solids, the salinity, all of these factors were called to our attention as well as to EPA's attention by Dr. Volz.
And in the Susquehanna River Basin where we are, I have an office in Towanda, Pennsylvania. I've met families. I spent 2 hours last night with a family, the father and the two sons, very high levels of barium. They don't know where it's coming from. The drillers come in and tell them your water's fine, nothing to worry about. They won't even give them a water buffalo so they'd have pure water. But their blood levels are extremely high, and you've been very helpful. What's your advice to families that have high barium levels or high levels of any of these dangerous heavy metals or chemicals?
Well, as you know, barium is a toxin. It is used in drilling muds. It is used in several parts of the process, not just fracking. And so it is possible that barium, as well as other compound, as well as barium, it's some sort of a compound that is probably being used, could eventually be found in groundwater, or it could be found in soil. The unfortunate thing is that children are always near soil. They're picking up dirt, they're eating it. Children are close to the ground. There's very little control over what children may do outside. So it would be important to have a pre-testing of your well water. And periodically, well water should be tested. If the well water is clear, then there's some assurance that there shouldn't be a blood level of barium found in testing.
So you suggested one of the national organizations to I know one of our clients, the
Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. If you find that there is an excess of any sort of contaminant, toxin in either your water or in your blood, you should report to the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Otherwise, they don't know about this.
You know, the sad part is the people in Pennsylvania, at least up in this area that I am in Towanda, whose wells have been contaminated, don't have much faith in their state government anymore. And that's a sad, sad commentary. They don't believe that the DEP is protecting them, and they don't believe that the Pennsylvania Department of Health is on their side either, because they see politics and the ugly head of politics, and a governor who refuses to tax the gas industry, doesn't want them overly regulated, and has said that the jobs are far more important than the collateral damage that's occurring in these regions. So we've been told that you have to report to the Department of Health first. Would it be smart to report to both the Department of Health and to the registry, so the registry at least knows that there's something happening?
Absolutely. The Department of Health, if they should start a system of investigation, that all can be then entered into the ATSDR report. But if there is a spill, if there is a release, if there is blood contamination, if there is a health hazard, ATSDR is tasked with looking into that. So yes, do it concurrently.
And these people we were with last night live right near where a spill occurred in Leroy. So maybe the best place for them to start is the ATSDR.
Well, the EPA is already aware of that one. However, I think it would be still a good idea to have the ATSDR look at it as a separate agency.
You know, I was there 3 days after the spill, and they were still in the process of the cleanup. And there was a herd of 60 cattle right along the area where the spill had occurred, eating the grass that obviously was contaminated with frac fluids. One has to wonder, as a pediatrician, would you be concerned for the safety of the kids that are drinking the milk from those cows?
Yes.
It just, and we in Pennsylvania have grown, I think we've got a deaf ear to the health problems because we've been blinded by the jobs. At a time that the economy is so bad, everybody's talking about, oh, all these wonderful high-paying jobs. Well, we had them in the coal mines in Scranton where I grew up. And I began my legal career meeting miners who were drowning in their own body fluids as a result of black lung. As a member of the Workplace Injury Law and Advocacy Group, I met families from Libby, Montana, who H.R. Grace poisoned their entire town with asbestos. And ball fields were lined with asbestos. The tracks had asbestos on them. All of the miners would come home with their clothes, their wives would wash it, and virtually the entire town was wiped out. So when we talk about jobs, someone has to ask, are those jobs worth the risk?
Exactly. The OSHA organization has on its website numerous articles about the danger of working in the oil and gas industry, and I think it would be worthwhile to take a look at those articles. It's not something that you would want your son or your daughter to be doing because it is high risk.
The workers, many of whom are from Oregon, or Oklahoma and Texas, if they get hurt, are under Texas and Oklahoma workers' compensation laws, which are the worst in the country. Virtually give no workers' rights whatsoever. And none of these fellas understand that they could apply for workers' compensation in Pennsylvania because they're sheltered. I've been told by some of the people that work in hospitals not to treat the workers, send them back to the company because their company nurses will treat them. It's really a sad commentary on what's happening, not only the workforce, but the people who are adjacent to.
Right, I think the federal government has to take a closer look at health in general, and that includes the workers, it includes these people who are considered anecdotes right now. They're listed as anecdotes, case reports, and not even in the medical literature. So all of this has to be addressed in a scientific way by the federal government, otherwise there is not going to be enough attention paid to it. All of the exemptions that are currently enjoyed by the industry need to be reversed. They have exemptions from parts of the Safe Drinking Water Act, from Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, RCRA, CERCLA.
The Dick Cheney secret meeting at the White House of the energy policies that allowed frac fluid to be a secret.
Right.
And that we're trying to get undone with, I think, your Congressman Henchy and Senator Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. But they're finding that they're having tough sledding with the lobbyists for the gas and oil industry that seem to own not only Pennsylvania, but Washington, D.C. as well.
States can make provisions also to reverse parts of these acts, and these, so states can address the waste, they can address the runoff. You know, states can also do their part. So it's not just the federal government that needs to be taken to task about this.
We're going to do our part to try to convince the states to do their part. We're going to be delivering these water bottles asking our clients whose wells have been contaminated to take a water bottle down to their state representative and state senator, and on the label it says, "I'm not a statistic. My name is," total people in a household, number of children, the date our well was contaminated, our mailing address, our phone number, and the problem with our water is.
See, the thing is, they're not even a statistic because nobody is looking at them at this point. They're an anecdote.
Doctor, I can't even tell you how many wells in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have been contaminated by methane gas, by barium, by strontium, by heavy metals, because DEP doesn't keep a registry of every single well. It's an outrage.
Yeah,
Now,
I think people need to be taken care of. I think that is what made me most concerned when I first started looking at this issue, and that was that there are already people who are ill, and they are not being looked at. Nobody is looking for them, and that has to change first.
Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really, thank you for what you're doing for the people here in
Thank you.
the Delaware River Basin. I'm Todd O'Malley with the law offices of O'Malley and Langan. If I say the word tragedy, what do you think? Floods, hurricanes, devastation on a huge scale. I bet not one of you thought work injury. And that's a problem in our society. Just because something happens one person at a time doesn't make it any less significant. Over 3.5 million people are injured or killed on the job every year, each an individual tragedy. If you've been hurt at work, call O'Malley and Langan, 1-800-817-COMP.